Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears reporter Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar. As we join you guys on Friday morning, the Bears are traveling back to the Mid-Atlantic where they'll play the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday afternoon. A good test for the Bears who, sure, the Ravens are 1-5, but let's not pretend like these are the Ravens and let's just say the Saints from last week. These are two different teams, especially with Joe. If the Ravens are getting a bunch of guys back, but then the major guy is Lamar Jackson looks to be coming back here on Sunday.
Yeah, that's everything we talk about going forward here in this podcast is clearly the final score and keys. It's all revolving around him, the two-time MVP of the league. So, yeah, looks like he's going to play. Right, he participated a little bit this week. Probably just being cautious, right, and probably will make a game time decision, I would assume. But if he's good to go and he wakes up Sunday morning, if he's feeling good, he'll be a go. Then the question is, how effective is he? He's missed the last two games for them, and will he be a little tentative with the hamstring?
Yeah, we'll break that all down here as we kind of look forward. Thanks to everyone who's joining us on the live stream. Appreciate it. Make sure you guys give us a like and subscribe. That's the best way to support us and help the YouTube channel grow. And if you're listening to us on the podcast and want to be part of the conversation, make sure you check out our social medias. We'll always post. We like to do this every Monday and Friday morning just to kind of break down and preview the game. But if you want to be part of the conversation, make sure you join us on the live stream like some of our regulars usually do. So Joe, obviously a big game. Bears have won 4 straight games, a lot of momentum on their side. But this really feels like a game, like a prove-it game. I feel like, I think the spread is still at 6.5 at this point. And that's with the understanding that I think the sports books think that Lamar is going to play. But Joe, this really feels like a game where the Bears, need to go to Baltimore and show that they are their 4-game winning streak, right? I feel like this is a really big test for them to prove, whether they win this game or make it a close game, at least prove that they've taken a step here under Ben Johnson.
I agree. Now, if Lamar doesn't play, they got to beat Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley,
Sure,
that quarterback. But if Lamar plays, even if it's not 100% of Lamar, that would be huge. And I think especially after the Saints game where it didn't feel like a rout, even though they won by double digits, it just, Caleb wasn't great, maybe his worst game of the season. So I think he needs to have a good game. And certainly if they're starting now, the national media is starting to buy in a little bit, right? Ben Johnson, all the hype videos after victories. And, they've won 4 in a row and they deserve some accolades now or some praise nationally, especially. And now people are starting to notice them a little bit. But if they go here and lay an egg and Lamar, shows he's healthy and he throws for 300 and rushes for 50 or something, it's not going to look good. So it is an important game for them, especially on the road.
All right, let's look at the injury report here. We're recording this, or we're joining you guys Friday morning. We'll get the final injury report here Friday afternoon with designations. But it's a packed injury report. Let's start off with Cole Kmet and Tyreek Stevenson. Those guys have not practiced all week. Cole's got a back, and Tyreek has a shoulder. And those two guys seem, if I had to guess at this point, I don't think they're playing on Sunday. Obviously, either one of those guys can come back on Friday and maybe they'll be a little bit more questionable. But, when Ben was asked about it on Monday, he called it a day-to-day, week-to-week thing. So my interpretation of that being, I would say anytime you throw week-to-week, I think you probably miss at least one game. We haven't seen Cole this week at practice or in the locker room. We haven't seen Tyreek at practice, and I think maybe someone saw him for a moment in the locker room. But listen, Joe, this really, for both Cole and Tyreek, those are big holes to fill. Obviously, with Cole, you have Colston, who, a lot of guys have been looking forward to kind of seeing if he can take the next step. And he's the obvious guy who's going to take over. But for Tyreek, if Tyreek doesn't play on Sunday, you already have a depleted cornerback room with Jalen Johnson obviously out for the indefinite time. How do you approach this? I guess how would you approach this? I mean, Kyler Gordon has shown you that he can play a little bit outside. Maybe you just put Nick McLeod there. Do you put Josh Blackwell there? They have good depth there, but to be missing two starters now at this point if Tyreek can't play, it's a really interesting thing that Dennis Allen is going to have to look at here.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, the injury to Tyreek is more disappointing or concerning, I think, as a Bears fan than the loss of Cole Kmet. I mean, they've got Colston Loveland for a reason, and there was a reason why they drafted him 10th overall. So it's his time then if Cole isn't ready, and Cole just hasn't been great this year. But Tyreek, who's had a good year, I mean, and again, they're so depleted. They had good depth in August. And since then, it's really gone downhill here. And there's only so much you can do. So the question of whether Lamar Jackson is going to play Sunday, that looms even bigger if he is going to play, because this secondary, at this point, what do you do? They'll say next man up, but my goodness, they're going to be playing guys at some point in the game that, again, like the average Bears fan hasn't even heard of. But I think you probably have to move Kyler if he's healthy, because did he miss a practice this week, or did I hear he got dinged up a little?
Kyler was he was limited yesterday with the groin and a calf. Like, again, obviously we'll see on Friday what that kind of means. The Friday injury report really is the one that I kind of take a lot of stock in. Obviously on Wednesday and Thursday, like yesterday, Joe Tooney didn't practice for rest. Like, those are just the days that you kind of are precautionary. I think the Friday practices are the ones where you're kind of like, all right, like, this will tell us if someone plays or not. But yeah, Kyler was added on to the injury report there with the combo injury.
Yeah, so hopefully he's good. If Tyreek can't go on Sunday, I would think you'd have to move Kyler Gordon to outside and hope Cooper Rush is the quarterback.
Yeah, you definitely need to. There are a lot of things you could do. CJ chiming in. Is Jalen Jones healthy? Haven't seen him since they signed him. Jalen Jones had a hamstring injury there at the beginning of the season for I think it was a week or two. But he is on the roster. I think he should be healthy. So he could be an option. I think they'll probably look at Nick McLeod, Josh Blackwell. Those seem to be the guys that they'll probably look at there if they don't want to put Kyler on the outside the entire time. Obviously when Nahshon Wright was out for a play or two against the Saints, they kind of bumped him out there. But that'll be interesting to see, and we'll hear more from Ben. But yeah, I mean, that'll be a really interesting development just to kind of see, if Lamar plays, even if you keep him, he doesn't want to run a lot on that hamstring. I mean, Dennis Allen talked about it, and we'll talk about it in our matchups, but I mean, you keep him in the pocket. That's not really a good spot you want to keep him in either, right? Because if he's in the pocket, he can abuse you and he can find the open receiver, or he can create plays. So yeah, that secondary will be really interesting to watch, especially if they're depleted the way they have been. Nahshon Wright had a hip injury earlier in the week. He was full on Thursday. I would assume that he'll be fine. DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift have both didn't practice on Wednesday. DJ Moore's got a hip. DeAndre Swift has that groin injury that he dealt with last week. Both were limited on Thursday. I would assume that both are going to be playing. It just felt like a management thing, and DJ didn't seem too concerned about it when we talked with him on Thursday. But Joe, those are two really important players that the Bears need to have, especially if they want to keep this running game going. And then for DJ, a guy who's kind of battled through a lot of injuries here in the last couple of weeks, both personal and other stuff. You have to be encouraged that he just kind of continues to fight on and, find a way to be out there for his team.
Yeah, and tell you the one guy you never hoped the season would. You'd have to say at one point in the season that Nahshon Wright is an important guy to this, but he is now. And this speaks to the depth and how it's been depleted in the secondary. So Nahshon, again, he's made a couple plays here this year, and that's probably two more than you probably thought you'd get out of him going into the season, or hoped you'd have to get out of him. But he's becoming an important part here, and the key to me going forward and for Sunday is can Kyler Gordon go, and can he be 100%? Because I don't want to tease it too much, but he might be the most important guy in the defense come Sunday.
Just to wrap up the injury report here, some other major names. Tremaine Edmonds got added with an ankle injury. He was limited. We'll see how much that's going to impact him. Grady Jarrett was a full participant with the knee injury, so that's really encouraging to see. Cairo Santos was also a full participant, so that's really encouraging to see as well. And the other thing, Joe, your guy, Austin Booker, he's got the last few days here to get off injured reserve. His 21-day window is going to close here, I think, by Monday, because they activated him a couple weeks on Monday. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with Austin Booker, because, if he's not able to play, he's out for the rest of the season on injured reserve. And Ben was asked about Austin earlier I think it was this week, he was asked about Austin Booker. He said there wasn't a setback. They feel completely good about the Gadstad up. They think he's progressing nicely and he's going to be able to help us. So maybe they activate him this weekend, but this will be the last weekend that Austin Booker can get activated, or he's lost for the season.
Well, I asked you after we got done with the podcast the other day about, because sometimes you have to, even as reporters who are at Halas Hall every day covering the team, you got to read between the lines sometimes, right? And I'm wondering, Austin Booker, is he not 100% healthy with the knee? Or is he, he's healthy, we just haven't seen enough, whether it's a motor issue, because he certainly plays with a motor when he's on the field, or has he just not been good enough? Because all of a sudden, I mean, that's a guy you spent, a 4th-round pick? Was he a 5th-round pick or 4th last year? Pardon?
You drafted back in last year for a 5th-round pick to get
the 5th-rounder. So, and he's flashed certainly in the preseason, the last 2 preseasons. But all of a sudden, if he's out for the year, that's another guy. And that's another guy, another position where you're not getting anything out of. You're not getting anything out of that pick. This is 2 wasted years essentially for him. Now he goes into year 3. Is he another guy we're gonna forget about, a few years down the road? Say, oh yeah, I remember him. He never turned out like so many guys. That's big, because I get a little excited because I saw what he did in the preseason. Like, maybe this is a guy. He looks the part, plays with a high motor, and all of a sudden now we're at the halfway point, and he's potentially done for the year. For either, I got to believe the knee is good enough, right? He's healthy enough.
He's been a full participant. Yeah, he's been a full participant here. Ever since they activated him or put him, allowed him to practice in the 21-day window, like, he's been a full participant. So it hasn't been that he's been limited. So, maybe we'll get some more clarity from Ben, this afternoon when we kind of talk to him about whether they plan on activating him. I think he's going to say he's not going to tell us. That's just Ben's way. He's not going to tell us if they do it. But I think, unless there's something really wrong going, I would imagine that he gets activated this weekend. And if not, then we'll have to dissect that a little bit here moving forward, because he was they took him in the 5th round. They thought that they could maybe stow him away. They took him, they felt that, he's got a year of development under his, under his belt, and he can really become something special, because they took him a year early, maybe than most people would have. So it'll be interesting to see, because that's a pick that kind of needs to hit, because at this point, other than Caleb and Rome, none of those picks are really hitting for you last year. And Cairo is going to be back, Joe. I would assume, we'll hear back from Ben today. But if he was a full participant today, unless he has a setback, I think Cairo will be back. And I think, Cairo's your starter here, and you just kind of tip your cap to Jake Moody for stepping in there, who has really revitalized his career, and, maybe another team is going to pick him up off the practice squad now, because the Bears can only activate him one more time off the practice squad before being forced to put him on their active roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll end up on another NFL team. I mean, right? You're not going to have no team keeps 2 kickers on the active roster, so it's Cairo's job. And after that shaky start, and we'll never know. Maybe we will know way down the road if anyone really cares. But signing Jake to the practice squad, to me, I said at the time, and it's not a major storyline certainly, but if you're signing him to the practice squad, that tells me you're seeing what the rest of us are seeing with Cairo at the beginning of the year, when it's like the distance issue is becoming an issue. And he wasn't as consistent. And all right, man, let's take a shot at this guy. Maybe it's the little spur that Cairo needs on his butt there to say, hey, man, every guy has to battle for the job every day. You got to earn your job every day. And maybe that helped Cairo, because he certainly came back, had the great game against the Raiders, thought it bailed them out many times when they failed inside the 30 to get 6 points. Jake gets a shot here, and he certainly has delivered. And, again, kickers are like relief pitchers in baseball, Great one year, bad the next, on a baseball, come back, lead the league in saves. I mean, it's just crazy, the life of a kicker. And Jake's going to get another opportunity, and it might be next week. A lot of teams have kicking issues, and I think Jake has certainly showed that he can kick in this league. I know it's only 2 games, but he's going to get an opportunity. It's just probably not going to be with the Bears again if Tyro's good to go.
CJ chiming in here, and I don't want to spend too much time on the kicker here, but he's saying, "I'm sorry, Cairo is more likely to be available than Moody. Why not keep Moody and grab Cairo if needed?" Cairo, like with me, even at the beginning of the year when Joe is trashing Cairo every single week, I think Cairo's way underappreciated amongst the fan base. Sure, I could see that. I know he missed a couple extra long kicks, but he's the franchise's most accurate kicker. Like I don't understand the obviously not the sports hatred toward him. Like I think he's a really good kicker. I think Jake Moody fit the role. He did a good job, and he hit a lot of things. But I think Cairo's a good kicker. He's your starter. Jake Moody fit the role. You don't put 2 kickers out there. You don't put Cairo on for the practice squad because someone's going to snag Cairo. Like someone is much more likely to snag Cairo than they are to snag Jake Moody, in my opinion. So I think you appreciate what Jake Moody did for your team. He stepped up for you in the big moment, obviously against the Commanders, and he did well against the Saints. But Cairo's your kicker at this point, unless he shows any sort of regression. And that's enough kicker talk for this podcast. All right, Joe.
One more note. It's just funny that you like Cairo more than I do, and I like Tory Taylor more than you do. So. But, all right,
I don't have anything against Tory. Tory's a great guy to talk to in the locker room. And he had a good game. He knocked in a couple of things. Again, that's enough kicking talk for here. All right, Bears are traveling to the Ravens. Like I said, Baltimore, 1:00 local time, noon o'clock here, obviously. Joe, big matchup here. What's your key matchup that you're going to be watching here on Sunday?
Well, it's got to be the quarterback, right? Their quarterback, whoever it is, against this secondary with 11 interceptions, which, I mean, they're at this crazy pace, through 6 games. So if it's Lamar, I think even if it's Lamar, I don't think that, they're going to get 4 turnovers necessarily again and 3 interceptions, but I still think they'll find a way to make some plays in the secondary, even if it's Lamar. But that's the question. Then if it's Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley, well, then, all bets are off here, and you still got to be able to take advantage of that guy, because, I mean, you look at that Baltimore team, like you said, I mean, 1-5, but it's not a good indication of who they are. We know how good this franchise is. I hear the 1-5 start, their worst start in franchise history. I mean, 1-5 is bad, but it's not like, we've seen a lot of Bears teams, I would think, over the years that are gone 1-5. So that speaks to how good that organization and consistent it is. But to me, that situation there with Lamar against this secondary, and because the secondary, look, the pass rush and the front 7 is just, well, Edmonds and Edwards have played well this year. TJ, when he's been playing, that is. But to me, it's can you get some turnovers, at least 2? I mean, 2 would be good. And I want to see that, but look, we don't get to see Lamar Jackson every year as Bears fans. You see him on TV a lot, but he's a dynamic player, 2-time MVP. Could have won it last year. Josh Allen got it. So I just want to see, and truthfully, I want to see him play. I don't. It's like any team, right? You want to play the best. When you play the Packers, you want to play Jordan Love. You don't want him. When they played Aaron Rodgers, I wanted Aaron Rodgers to be healthy and play. You got to beat the best. So I want to see Lamar Jackson play. I want to see him close to 100%, and I want to see the Bears beat him, because if they do, that is a definite statement game for them and a confidence builder going forward. So that's what I want to see. And if it's Cooper Rush, so be it. Attack him and get out of there with a win, and you have to win that football game. But I want to see Lamar, and I want to see how good this secondary, although it's really depleted, like we talked at the beginning of the show here. So that's, you got to consider that too. But to me, it's the quarterback, their quarterback against the Bears secondary.
I'm going to go with the obvious statement here, but Lamar Jackson is really hard to stop. Full stop. Like that's just, Dennis Allen was asked about it, and they're asking, we were asking him about, do you want him to go side to side? Do you want him to whatever? Like, how do you limit him? And Dennis Allen's kind of like, I don't think you want him to do anything. Like, that's the problem, right? Like, if you force them, like, right. If you pressure him in the pocket and you force him to run, he hurts you there. If you force him to stay in the pocket because you're limiting his options on running, then he hurts you there. Like, he hurts you no matter what you do as a defense, right? And that's what makes him such a great quarterback, and why he's a 2-time MVP in this league. And could have rightfully, like you said, Joe, be a 3-time MVP if Josh Allen didn't have the season that he had last year. So he's going to be an incredible player to stop, and I'm excited to watch him play in person, just to kind of see what makes, like, you get to see like greatness in person. Like, that's a really cool opportunity just to kind of see what he's able to do. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what Dennis Allen is able to scheme up here. You got to get much more pressure out of your defensive line. Like we talked about last week, they got Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker involved. I don't know how much you're going to be able to do that, because I think you're going to have to drop them back in coverage, right? To kind of, protect and kind of, I don't think you're going to be able to do what you did against the Saints with the Ravens. So this secondary is really going to have to step up. My surprise prediction isn't going to be that they're going to have 4 or 3 turnovers. Can they force one against Derrick Henry? And maybe if they get after Lamar, especially if he's a little bit slower than he normally is because of the hamstring, that'd be great. But you need your defense to limit the damage, and that's especially in the secondary, because if you let Lamar pick up 10 yards here, 15 yards here on passes, like, he's just going to move the ball down the field. He's going to take what you're giving him. You might take away the big play away from him, but he's going to take those 10, 15-yard passes, and that's just going to move the ball down the field. So you're really going to need to come up with a game plan here to kind of limit him, create some sort of pressure on him. And, maybe you roll up. Maybe you do. I'm not saying that, obviously I'm not saying to injure him, but maybe you do give him a hit, and you're kind of like, all right, like, maybe you question how, mobile you want to be, especially with that hamstring injury. But it's going to be an incredibly tough task, and I'm really interested to see, what Dennis Allen does with the scheme. Maybe that's confusing Lamar. I don't know how much you can confuse Lamar at this point, but kind of throw a wrench into anything that he does.
Yeah, and they need to see more production. We've been saying it all year. I've been saying it all year from the front four. Having Grady Jarrett back, that'll be nice, because we still don't know how much he's got left in the tank, injury or not. And then Ayo Odengbo, have we mentioned his name since week 1? I mean, after he had that sack for like a few yards against Minnesota, we got to see more of him making plays, getting to the quarterback. At least Montez, who hasn't had a good year, but at least now back-to-back games, he showed a little bit. And you're noticing him more during games where Ayo, where are you, man? But they got to start figuring this out a little more. And especially if you're not going to be blitzing from the secondary with Brisker or Gordon. You got to get some pressure on him. And I just got to believe, if you're Lamar, you're coming off a hamstring injury. You know how it is with injuries. You come back from one, whether it's been a week, 2 weeks, a month, you got to gain the trust again in your body, that your body will handle it, because you're going to be a little tentative, like, especially that game, football, you can't play it at 80%. You got to be at 100%. So if he thinks he's at, he's got to play 100%. If they get some pressure on him where maybe he's got to scramble and do some Lamar things, he's got to be thinking, careful now. Don't re-injure that hamstring. We know how sensitive hamstring injuries are. So I'm going to be curious. Like maybe he will peel back a little bit. Maybe he re-injures it. You don't want to see that either. But you can't just let him sit in the pocket all day where he's not even thinking about it, because that's a problem then.
Yeah, he'll abuse you. Like he'll just take advantage of whatever you give him if you let him stay in the pocket, especially if he's got 3 or 4 seconds. Like he's going to find something, and I think that's where things can get really ugly really quickly. So that'll be a big thing to watch, and we'll obviously keep an eye on that. My big matchup, obviously, is the rebound from Caleb. Obviously last week was his season worst performance. He was just off on the rhythm wasn't there in the passing game at all. And I'm really interested to see how he does against this this Ravens defense that I don't think, the Ravens defense doesn't have much of a pass rush. They got a bunch of older guys on their defensive line. So I think Caleb will have time. But listen, the Bears or the Ravens secondary is really good. You got, safeties, Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton is obviously a Pro Bowl, all-pro guy. Marlon Humphrey, I think he's the one who's been dealing with an illness this week, but he should be playing. He's an all-pro Pro Bowl guy. Like the Ravens secondary is really talented and really good. Obviously, Roquan Smith, Bears fans know him. He should be coming back from a hamstring injury here. He's been a full participant, and I would expect him to play. Like the Ravens secondary is really talented. So I'm really curious to see, what Ben schemes up here to kind of create some open lanes for Caleb, and whether this is a game where maybe Caleb does throw an interception or two, or whether he airs it out. I think this will be a really good test for him, where maybe he doesn't have too much pressure, but is he able to find the open lanes against a really elite secondary?
Yeah, this game is important for him. And he needs to find his confidence. Because I don't care what he'll say to you, what Ben Johnson will say to you. Maybe Ben Johnson, he's pretty straightforward, it seems like, with the media. Yeah. But Caleb needs a bounce back game here. And maybe they lose, but he bounces back. Maybe he has a good game and they lose. Because, as we've said from day one, it's about the quarterback. Because it's funny, I was thinking about after last week, like, is it possible the Bears could, at the end of the season, Bears fans could say, we're headed in the right direction. We have the head coach. It's coming together. But the quarterback is still a question. Because you figure before it's all about, well, if the quarterback's good to go, then they're headed in the right direction. Now maybe is the rest of it headed in the right direction, and the quarterback isn't. Again, it's one game, and he hasn't been great this year. He's been pretty good, though, other than last week. So it's an important game for him. And I just want to let's not be tentative. Let's not just do the screen. Gun the ball downfield, man. You have the big arm. You're a big boy. It's year 1.5 now for you here. Let's go. So I think it's important. And again, that's a good secondary there in Baltimore. And they're way better if they're healthy. If all their key guys are playing Sunday, you're getting the Ravens from last year, not the Ravens from this year. But he needs to step up in a game like this against this team, because everyone's always curious. Baltimore, they're always, the top subject on a broadcast, on a podcast, because of what they've done. So he needs to have a big game come Sunday.
It's a big proven moment for him, right? Like, I don't think that this season is going to define who he is by any means, but I think it tells us on which direction he's going, right? Like, I think, I feel like I wrote a couple stories about Caleb this week, and my main focus point has been like, the whole, like, progress isn't linear. Like, there are going to be highs and lows. Like, that's just how life is. And anything, right? In sports, in your personal development and work or whatever. And that's the same thing for the quarterback development. So, you had the highs, of winning against Dallas. You won back-to-back games in the last, play against the Raiders and the Commanders. Then you had a lower game. Like, you relied on the run game and you relied on the defense against the Saints. Now's a good opportunity to get back on the upward trajectory and to kind of continue that development against a really talented defensive scheme, players, all the above. Like that's a really good defense, and this is a really good opportunity for Caleb to kind of show out in front of. I don't think it's a national audience because it'll be a noon game, but I would imagine a good chunk of the nation gets that game on CBS at noon. All right, Joe, what is your surprise prediction for Sunday?
My surprise prediction for Sunday is that Caleb will have a good game. I'm not saying he's going to throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns and they're going to win by 10. But I think he'll have a good game. I think they'll find a way. And I think this coaching staff, a small sample size, but we've already seen like they know what they need to work on. I mean, we're not telling them anything they don't know. And I think they address it and they figure it out. And I do believe, although as we mentioned with Caleb, that progress isn't linear all the time. I do think in a way it is with this coaching staff. I think you're seeing like they're giving them more time, getting to know their personnel better. They have another week under the belt. They're figuring things out. They're smart coaches, not only Ben and Dennis Allen, but the assistants they have. So I am encouraged by that. But I think Caleb will have a good game, and we'll see.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same mind. I don't think you lose Sunday because of Caleb. I don't think it doesn't feel like a game you lose because of him. But I do, it does feel like I agree with you with the mindset of this coaching staff is going to get this team ready. I think you've seen this every single week. I know Ben likes to say, I wish I had a couple play calls back. He could, I think Ben is I think anytime anything goes wrong, I feel like he's like first to say, I could have done a better job. Like he's the first to take accountability, which I know players appreciate because that obviously wasn't a thing that happened often last year, during last year's 5-12 team. But I think that this coaching staff takes accountability and they get their guys ready. So I think that'll be a big part of that, Joe. I think that they put Caleb in a good spot to succeed. They put him in good positions, and they'll piggyback off of that. I think we're going to see a few trick plays. I think we're going to see my surprise prediction is you're going to see a few trick plays. I don't know if you see the stumble bump, but I do think that this is a game in a moment where Ben Johnson is going to want to do some trick plays, and he's going to want to get different guys involved, whether that's Luther Burden, whether that's Colston Loveland, or whether, I think, last week we really didn't see anything too crazy. I don't think he wanted to reinvent the wheel or anything like that it wasn't a sloppy thing, but it wasn't the best circumstances. So my surprise prediction is that you're going to get at least one, if not two, trick plays from Ben Johnson as he tries to keep this thing going. CJ chiming in, no offensive penalties. That's going to be a big key if you want to win this game. You cannot have offensive penalties, especially in the red zone. Rick chiming in, my surprise is no sacks allowed by the Bears. I like that. I think I would go with that. I think this offensive line has been playing much better than it has in the past. And like we said earlier, this pass rush from the Ravens isn't that great. All right, Joe, we're going to go to our most valuable Bear here. You won your first matchup of the week last week after we gave you a hard time for choosing the kicker, Jake Moody. You ended up winning that matchup. So now you got your first win on the board. You are.
I thought I got one when I got Caleb. Didn't I get that week? Did I get one that week?
Oh, you did. I forgot. I forgot.
You're gonna whip my butt at the end of the season by season.
I forgot that I remember earlier in the week I was like, oh, I have the same record as the Bears do, 4-2. You're right. All right, so I'm still winning 4-2, but you got your win against with Jake Moody, which is still a crazy pick, but obviously it worked for you. All right, you chose first last week, so I'm going to go first this week. How many weeks do we have left in the season? We're in week 8.
And after this week, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to. I'm still deciding when I want to use my Caleb or when I want to save it for end of the year. I'm gonna skip the quarterback this week, but he's going to be a big reason why. I'm going with Colston Loveland. I think that this is a game that the Bears are going to. I think Ben Johnson is going to focus in on Colston Loveland. You saw that he started to do that in week 3 against the Cowboys. Before he got that hip injury and that kind of derailed him. I think you needed to see him be more of a run blocker against the Commanders and especially against the Saints last couple of weeks. But with Cole Kmet out there, I think that Ravens are going to focus in on Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, and I think that really opens things up for Colston Loveland. I think Ben Johnson's going to get him involved. That's been a big focal point for the team this week. It's going to be my Saturday feature, talking about Colston Loveland, taking advantage of the moment. So my most valuable bear is going to be Colston Loveland. This feels like a breakout game for him, especially with Cole not out there.
That's a good one. I'd be all for it. I'd be all for it, seeing what this kid can do. So and he will have that game. He will have that game, whether it's Sunday, I'm not sure, but when it does, we're going to love it because he really looks the part. And the few opportunities he's received, it looks good, right? It's like with Luther Burden. And just to backtrack a little bit, I love the surprise prediction. What was it? Was it CJ about no penalties?
Yeah,
that would be a big one, by the way. So kudos for that.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's your most valuable bear?
My most valuable bear. I'm just not overly. I think Caleb's going to have a big game. All right, I said that, so I will go with an offensive player. I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift. Have I burned him the DeAndre Swift card yet? Maybe I did.
Well, you can use them. You can use them again.
I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift. He's not going to rush for 100 every week. If so,
he could against this defense. That's the other thing we haven't talked about. Like, this run defense is not that great by the Ravens, so no. I don't hate that pick at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with DeAndre. These two games have really been impressive these last 2 weeks, and he's not going to do this every week. If so, he'd probably threaten Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record. You average 110 yards a game every week or whatever, but I'd have to do the math there. Well, you probably still wouldn't catch Eric Dickerson. That was still crazy, 2,000 plus yards. But in any event, I'll go with DeAndre. He's the it guy right now for this offense. Even when he gets the ball on a pass from Caleb, he's able to shake and bake a little bit and do some things. So I'll go with DeAndre Swift.
Him and Kyle have really stepped up here the last couple of weeks. And I think you need to do that, right? Like, you need to force the Ravens to defend the run in order to open things up in the pass game. So, I like that pick a lot. I was debating whether to go with it, but, I kind of went against the trend. I was kind of like, well, it can't be 3 straight weeks, but I was doubting. I was doubting DeAndre the last couple of weeks, and look where that got me. So, I like that pick. I think that this running game has figured something out. This run defense from the Ravens is not good. This offensive line is really hitting it well. Darnell Wright is really hitting his stride right now on the right tackle side. And, it was interesting. We got a chance to talk with Dan Roshar yesterday, and, he talked about, this is in my takeaways, if you guys want to check it out from Thursday, and talking about, Darnell can still get another level if he uses his injured arm, which was really interesting to hear him talk about. But yeah, I think that this running attack is really going to go off and kind of continue that. So it'll be that. I think I like that pick. CJ chiming in. He's going with Burden. Come out with the woodwork for another 100 yards. He could definitely be involved in those trick plays that I was talking about earlier. So I like that pick, CJ. Robert's going with my most valuable bear. He's going with Colston Loveland. And Rick going with DJ Moore. DJ Moore obviously has been a little bit quiet. He's been injured. So yeah, I could see, especially with the trick plays, if you want to get him some yak opportunities, I can see DJ getting involved in there too. So I like that pick, Rick. All right, Joe, noon on Sunday, game is on CBS. Bears are playing at the Baltimore Ravens. I think the weather forecast is supposed to be a beautiful fall day for football. So that's good to hear. What happens on Sunday afternoon, Joe?
Well, I think Lamar's going to play. They can't go to 1-6. I know the AFC North is not the AFC North as it was last year, or,
Sure.
No Joey Burrow out, and I don't know, is Pittsburgh going to win that division? Were they 4-2? But Baltimore needs this football game. If the other quarterbacks have to play, then their season's probably done. But I think Lamar's going to play. I think Baltimore wins. It just seems like the Bears are due for a loss after 4 in a row, and 2 tight ones in between there. So I think Baltimore wins. Final score, I think they dropped 28 on them. 28-22.
28-22. Yeah, I'm kind of the same mindset for you, where it's already tough for Baltimore to come back after 1-5, but at 1-6, your season is done. Like it's almost impossible. You would have to win out at that point. So this is a big game for Baltimore. Lamar's coming back. This is a home game. I agree. Everything just points to this is just a game that Baltimore is going to win. I think the spread has been 6.5 for most of this week. I don't think it's that big. I think the Bears keep this interesting for the most part, but I just think that Lamar is back. I think he's going to air it out. I think he's able to kind of keep things. Listen, he's the most valuable player, even if he's hurt. Like he can make incredible plays even when he's not at 100%. And I think, Jaden Daniels took advantage of the Bears a little bit sometimes in that Monday night game. Jared Goff went off on the Bears. He took advantage of them pretty easily. So, and Dak Prescott, at times before he threw those 3 interceptions, looked really good too against this Bears secondary. So I'm kind of in a proven mode with this Bears secondary. I know they force turnovers, but you're not going to force 4 turnovers every single game. So I think this is a game that Baltimore just needs and kind of picks up a huge win. I'll go with I like the 28. Yeah, I'll go with the 28 for the Ravens. I think it's a 28-24 win for the Ravens. I think the Bears have an opportunity late in that game, but can't convert. So Bears drop their first game in over a month, but I think it's competitive, which will be encouraging. I think you're going to see some good performances from the Bears. I just think that Baltimore has too much to play for at this point. Rick chiming in, he's going with the Bears 27-24. Robert doesn't like our predictions. He's going with Boo. But yeah, I think it'll be.
I don't like him either.
I think Joe. Obviously, you don't want to take solace in losing. Like the Bears, but the Bears are kind of at a point right now where I think if you're competitive on the road, if you win the game, great. I think if you win this game, obviously that's great for morale. That's a big step for this program for Ben Johnson in his first year. But this really feels like a game where you can't get blown out. I think you're really feeling bad in this game if the Ravens put it on you and your offense has no clues. If you lose this game, like we said, 28-24 or 28-22, like you said, then I think you leave that game. You're like, Baltimore had a lot to play for. They still have the most valuable player heading into this game. Into the season, we would have said that this is obviously a Super Bowl contender. So I don't. If they lose this game close, I'm not too worried about it and what it means for the season.
Yeah, it's still big picture with the Bears, right? Is the quarterback progressing? Are the rookies playing? Are they showing like, yeah, they got the right guys. They picked the right guy. That still matters going forward. And let's clean up the dang penalties. I almost swore. Let's clean up the penalties. This is too much. I don't want to be talking about this again come Monday. Like, yeah, another 8 penalties for 92 yards. No more. Clean it up. I know it's on the road. It's tougher, but you were at home and it was still bad. So let's play a clean football game and see where that takes the team. Right. Let's see how they look when they can clean it up. Not that they'd be perfect, but it should be much better.
Yeah, I think you want it to look good, right? Like if it looks good and it comes down to a play or two and you just can't convert, then I think you're fine with that. I think you're like, okay, they're the Ravens. They're a Super Bowl contender without all these injuries. The Bears are still in their first year with the new coach, still developing. But if it looks bad, I think there are going to be a lot of questions on Monday when we talk to you folks. Rick chiming in with our last question before we say goodbye. If the Bears lose, is the Bengals game a must win? I don't know if you can have a must win in the middle of the season. Joe Flacco's played better. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a layup by any means, and I don't think the Giants are going to be a layup either. I think that if the Bears lose on Sunday and they have hopes of making the playoffs, that's a game that I think they have to win if they have any hopes of making the playoffs, because then you have the Giants and then you enter that really tough stretch where you play the Vikings, the Packers twice, the Eagles, the 49ers, and Detroit again. I know Cleveland's and the Steelers, obviously, and I know Cleveland's in there, but that second half of the schedule is not great. So I guess, Rick, if you have any hopes of making the playoffs, I guess it kind of is a must win next week.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, yeah, if they lose, That's a Bengals team again. It's going to be without their quarterback, but you got to beat them. But it's like, in a way, I think the more I think about it, like a must win for the Bears. Are there must wins this season? Because we're not anticipating them making the playoffs. Now, if they beat Baltimore here, however way, on Sunday, all of a sudden you're what, 5-2? What's my math here? 5-2.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're like, we're 5-2. We beat Cincy. We're 6-2. Not to get too far ahead. We did that last year. And you saw what happened. Now you're like, hey man, playoffs are 100% on the radar. And they'd be disappointed if you're 6-2 and you don't make the playoffs. I'm way ahead of myself.
You're jumping on here, Joe. You're really driving the rails now.
I'm done.
We can have that conversation on Monday of the Bears. We'll let you go down that avenue if they win on Monday. But I don't want you to waste your breath now. If we end up getting CJ's prediction, which is a 24-10 Ravens win.
Attaboy.
All right, that's everything that we've got for you folks on this Friday morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who joined us on our live stream. We really appreciate all the comments. Make sure you like us while you're here. If you're watching this later, make sure you like us and subscribe. That's the best way to support us. We really appreciate your support. Love growing the live stream and love getting comments and talking with you guys here as well. So really appreciate you guys joining us. If you're joining us on the podcast, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you also subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to be part of the live conversation, make sure you check out our social medias. We usually do Friday morning and Monday morning. Sometimes, obviously the schedule changes, Bears, and depending on the Bears schedule and obviously my travel schedule. So we'll get that figured out for you folks. I'm traveling back Monday morning, so we might have to do an afternoon podcast, but make sure you're following us on social media and we'll give you an exact time. Make sure you're following me at Dwojak94 on all social medias. I'll have your coverage from Baltimore this weekend and from Halas Hall this afternoon. And follow at Joe Aguilar at Joe Aguilar at 64 at Joe Aguilar 64 on Twitter. He's got your Week 9 high school football coverage. The playoffs are around the corner. It is cold as heck out there, so that means that the playoffs must be around here. Joe will have your breakdown as the playoffs start here in the McHenry County area, so make sure you're following him. So thanks so much for joining us on this Friday morning. The weather looks beautiful out there, so make sure you enjoy it, and hopefully you guys enjoy Friday afternoon's game, and we will talk to you folks down the road.